Hello, people, and welcome to something a little bit different. To the left or the right of me is a friend of mine and one of my colleagues, David G. And together we've come up with a very novel idea that we're putting together a podcast and we're going to call it Butting Heads. We're not going to be afraid of naming names. We're not going to be afraid of throwing people to the dogs or under the bus, as we like to call them. And we're going to go over all the controversial topics, both in vaping and CBD, and last but not least, both big tobacco, big pharma, and the corruption within the government. So I'd like to introduce my co-host, David G. David.
Hello there. How are you?
If you would like to tell the people exactly who you are,
okay,
and why you're in this game now. And
I'll give you the thumbnail sketch, okay? Because I don't want to bore your listeners, and I don't want to bore you.
That's fine.
Okay, I am David G. because my name is David Gerlitz, and I am the former Winston Man. Yes, kind of like the Marlboro Man. The Marlboro Man, unfortunately, can't be here tonight because he's dead. He's one of 5 Marlboro men in the United States that died of lung cancer. I am the former Winston Man. Winston was owned by R.J. Reynolds, and I was their lead model from 1981 to 1988, which is a long time ago. I am an old man now. I'm not the age I was when I started. I was 31, and now I am 68. I'll be 69 on my next birthday. But for about 8.5, 9 years, I was the lead model to introduce tobacco to kids, because 93% of smokers start as kids. So they paid me a lot of money to entice, encourage, lure, trick, target, and market young boys, because Winston was a guy's cigarette. The women had their own. They had Virginia Slims and Eve and Satin and Chelsea and Misty and, all the same shit that, entices and encourages kids. And everybody in the world knows that smokers start as teenagers. Everybody. Now, are there exceptions? Of course. If somebody who never made it through, they made it through high school and college without smoking, and then they get into a bad marriage or a horrible job or get involved in other illicit drugs or alcoholism, yeah, they might start smoking as a grown-up, but 93% start as kids. And that's where the $14 billion U.S. advertising budget came along to now have all these brands associated with healthy activity. My job was to mountain climb, helicopter pilot, storm searcher. Mountain climbing and smoking, yeah, they go together. Those are if you stop and think about it for a minute, what an oxymoron that is. And the Marlboro brand, of course, was the cowboys and the horses, and the Newport was alive with pleasure and the fun and the Salem spirit. And so I was a part of the scam in the 80s to replace smokers who die every day. We have a rate of 1,200 people dying over here in the United States every day from a smoking-caused illness. Now, if you get a hangnail, okay, or a toe fungus, they're not going to blame it on tobacco. But everything else, whether it's heart disease, whether it's esophageal cancer, there's so many connections to other parts of cancers, like from the body parts people. There's so much cancer that metastasizes in other areas of the body. I mean, if it could start in the brain, it could start in the lung, it could start in the kidney, it can start in the pancreas. But the amount of chemicals, gases, and poisons that are in cigarette smoke right now, they've rated it anywhere between 4,760 to about 6,000 different chemicals, gases, poisons, irritants, vapors, pesticides, toxins, and 62 of them are known to be carcinogens. Now, when you stop and think about it, if we've known this since 1964, when our Surgeon General, I don't know what you call them over in Australia, the chief medical doctor, would that be your health minister? Would that be?
No. We have a different body, very similar to the FDA. They're called the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration.
Well, our president has always had a Surgeon General who oversaw everything. And at the time when I was doing this, we had a Surgeon General named C. Everett Koop. But prior to him, every administration can bring in their own Surgeon General. C. Everett Koop was there under when I was the Winston Man. But prior to that, in 1964, when I was 14, It's just odd. And when I was 14, that's when I started smoking. And, well, 13 or 14. And the Surgeon General went on television. It was black and white TV. And the Surgeon General's name was Dr. Luther Terry. He went on and announced it has been proven that smoking causes death and cancer. Okay? Now, he didn't say tobacco. He said smoking. See, the smoke is what kills people. It's the combustion. It's the burning. It's all the tars and carcinogens through synergy. When you light something, you're going to get more and more chemicals and poisons and irritants. So, he knew in 1964. And in our country, from 1964 to 2009, when Barack Obama came into office, Barack Obama, if you don't know who he was our president for 8 years.
Yeah. Correct.
He's the one in 2009. I remember the date. It was June 19th. He announced that federal government was now going to regulate tobacco with the Tobacco Control Act. That was 2009, which meant that they will now get even more federal funded tax dollars that would go into the government coffers. Not just to mention the state taxes, the local taxes, the federal taxes. They were going to get even more. So they ended up the bet. And that was, now we got to keep people smoking because we need the revenue. But at the same time, we're going to plant the idea that we really give a shit, because they didn't. They didn't give a shit because they were putting all this money into tobacco control, which failed miserably. How do you get billions and billions and billions of dollars to do tobacco control? And every state for the last 25 years has failed miserably in prevention of youth smoking. They failed in cessation. They failed in clean indoor air. The only place they got A's in their report cards, every state, would be in tobacco taxes. When they raised the taxes, and then that's the only place where they got A's. Everything else was C's, D's, and F's. So, I knew very early on. This story. We could tell this story over the next 6 months, okay? Because I've got 35 years, but we're not going to do it tonight because I'm going to get in such a mood that nothing's going to come out of my mouth other than 4-letter words, and I don't want that to be the reason why we do our show, okay? Our program, our podcast. And you know that when I start talking, you can't shut me up, okay?
That's also a good thing, David, because...
Well, go ahead.
The thing is, you've come ever so far from being part of the industry that helped kill people. Now you're on the other side of the fence. You've both got your own CBD line with Pinnacle, and you have your own liquid line with Vapes Gone Wild. Right.
And there's a reason why I do that. I went all these years. But let me finish the story real quick so people can understand that I just didn't go from one thing to this is over 30 years now, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. When I did the ads until 1988, okay, I was very successful. I was paid a lot of money. We moved Winston sales from number 4 to number 2, right behind Marlboro. So in 1988, something really happened. I'm working for them for 7.5, 8 years, making a lot of money. I'm also doing stunt work. I'm also doing, movies. I'm working with Harrison Ford. I know if you've ever heard of Harrison Ford.
Just slightly.
The actor over here. I did several films over here. I did TV shows. I was a model. I did all that stuff. It was kind of fun when I was 30. And it's 100 years ago to me in my mind. So when I did these ads, I was an actor, and I cannot kick myself over and over again because would it be difficult for you to turn down $100,000 a year for 26 days work? Because that's what they were paying me, Paul. They were paying me $100,000 a year for 26 days work. And all I had to do was entice, encourage, lure, trick, and target young boys. It sounds perverted when you stop and think about it, but that was my job, to replace those who quit or die every day with boys. Now, when you're smoking and you're addicted, you don't care what you smoke, but usually the branding is what's really important to get a captured audience, to get a culture. And that's what Winston was doing right behind Marlboro. So anyway, I quit smoking in 1988. And it's a long story, but my brother was diagnosed with cancer and he was 4 years older than me. And here I am out doing the ads, which causes the number one cause of cancer is smoking. And he gets cancer, and I'm still doing the ads. I'm still on billboards, and my kids are coming home from school begging me to quit because they didn't want me to die like their Uncle Bobby. So that was kind of like my aha moment, that's when I kind of said, I can't do this anymore, even though I was making a lot of money. So I had to make a decision when my son was 11 or 12. My daughter was 17 or 18, and she was smoking. She was, I knew it because you can smell. And my younger daughter was 5 or 6. And what am I going to do when my brother's dying of cancer and my face is all over billboards, magazines, that they can see me every day? I don't know if on our shows in the future you'll be able to, put up some of my Winston ads so people have an idea of what I was 30 years ago.
Yeah,
but
we
I
can
think
do that.
I just think it's important that people know that I'm just not a waffling son of a bitch who's now a disgruntled employee. I left them. I left RJ Reynolds. I'm not a disgruntled employee. They paid me well, and I did a good job for them. And unfortunately, the job I did happened to kill in this country about 430,000 people a year. Now, I'm not the only reason. Modeling and acting was just a part of what I did. The ads are only a part of the problem. Enticing, encouraging to make a product look good, when you've already got the peer pressure from your friends to smoke or your parents smoke, and you're told from the time you're 4, 5, or 6, don't you smoke until you're grown up, mature, and responsible. Because that's what I was always told. You don't smoke until you're grown up, mature, and responsible. And what do you hear from 8 years old on? Grow up, be mature, be responsible, act your age, do what you're told. So you get these conflicting, narratives all the time. So what's the thing you're going to do? Well, 13, 14, you're not listening to your parents. You're listening to your friends. You're listening to it's an environmental thing. Then on top of that, a 13, 14, or 15-year-old isn't thinking about dying like we are at 65, 68, 70, 74. Like smokers have to think about it now because they've been smoking since they were 14. Now they can't quit, and they're probably going to die prematurely from a smoking-caused illness or disease, or maybe genetically they're predisposed to other kinds of diseases, But chances are, if you look at the numbers and if you do the math, it doesn't take a mental giant to figure out that if you smoke for 40 or 50 years, there's a real good chance that you might have to die from something that was caused by that addiction to cigarettes and combustibles. So I quit smoking in 1988 publicly, and it pissed RJ Reynolds off. They didn't like me. They didn't call. We don't do lunch anymore. They just said that, I made history. No one had ever turned their back on RJ Reynolds or Philip Morris or Lorillard or British American Tobacco. So I became the golden boy for the anti-tobacco movement, because that's when it all started coming together in the late 80s. We knew about secondary smoke and passive smoking, and you blow smoke around children with asthma, you're being a pedophile, you're being a child abuser. So we started getting all this, we were getting shit on is what we were doing, because the anti-tobacco movement, which wasn't all that bad back then, because they were doing the right thing. We knew cancer and smoking were related. We knew heart disease and respiratory illnesses were related to smoking. We knew that children with asthma shouldn't be forced to breathe in those chemicals and gases in an enclosed car. We started having the no more smoking in pubs, no more smoking on the airplanes. Remember when you used to be able to smoke on an airplane? You couldn't smoke in rows 1 to 18, but 19 to 26, you were fine.
Yeah, back in cattle classes, we used to call it.
like that smoke doesn't move, like the smoke doesn't get recirculated and pumped in. So that's when people were really getting up in arms. And then the union for the flight attendants were saying we're getting cancers because of people smoking in the plane, and we don't even smoke. And it just became neurotic, but also true, because I don't want my kids or my grandkids around somebody smoking, 4,700 chemicals and gases and poisons. So, started getting, pissy. Then we got the anti-smoking zealots, and then the ones that look at you like you're a parasite or a leper. You remember those days, right?
Yeah.
Because if you smoked around kids or even a pregnant woman, you were just evil. And that's how the whole thing started in the late 80s, early 90s. And now I'm involved by going to schools because I got hired by the anti-tobacco people, which was a body parts people, I call them, the American Cancer, Lung, Heart Associations. They brought me in to go into schools to try to get kids to understand that smoking is not something, no matter how much you're lured, targeted, and marketed, that smoking does not have to be something you must do because you're reaching that rite of passage into young adulthood at 14 to 17 or 18. So that's kind of like a little thumbnail sketch of what I did. And that was going good for about 20 years when I was now going to every state in this country. I went to China. I came to Australia with Simon Chapman. I did come over on his behalf. He paid for me to come over to talk to kids in the media. And this was when smoking was, pretty prevalent over there. You were at about 45%, I think is what I recall.
It was really, really high.
Higher. Yeah. It was really high. So they came over, they brought me over, and I went to Sydney, and then I flew out to Perth, and then I went to Melbourne, and then I went to Canberra, and then I went to a couple of private schools, and I did comedy shows. I did shows to show how stupid it was to associate smoking with healthy activity. I used all my ads with one of those. Remember those old slide projectors? Yeah, you push a button and the next slide, next slide. Then it would get stuck. Then it would get stuck. You'd have to back it up, and it was just all screwed up.
Banging on it.
I did that for a lot of time. I went to Sweden. I went to China. I went to Japan, and I went to Australia. So I was doing good work because I was trying to pay it forward. I was trying to make amends for the shitty job that I was doing, even though I was getting paid a lot of money to do it. So I quickly learned that the tobacco companies were not all that lily white. I thought that the anti-tobacco movement had a good intention, and that was to keep kids from smoking, which I thought was a good thing for me to do. And it took me 10, 15 years of working for them because I was making a lot of money with them too, because there was a lot of money coming in from all the taxes that were now being developed through propositions like California had Prop 99. For every pack of cigarettes sold, 25 cents went to prevention and cessation and intervention and all that shit. So I was doing really well, and I became the former Winston Man. I became the icon of the anti-tobacco movement with all these people until they became as greedy and as pompous and as arrogant and as nasty and as snarky and as smarmy and as narcissistic as the tobacco companies, because now everybody's getting rich. Everybody's making tons of money, and everybody's getting grants up the wazoo. You're in a public health office in a county, in a state, you get all the money you want for smoking prevention. Now you can bring in 10 people to do your bidding for health education on tobacco. And so I was a part of that, and it stopped somewhere around 2006. And that was after the Master Settlement Agreement with $246 billion going into the coffers of every state except for 4 that had already had a previous agreement with the tobacco company. It was called the MSA. And 4 states got $42 billion from the tobacco industry in 72 hours. And then the rest of the country got on board. And all they had to do was sign an agreement that they'll get a lot of money for the rest of their term. They started with 25 years in perpetuity. That's the word they use, perpetuity.
Yep.
For 25 years, they'll get all this money. Okay, the only thing they have to do is they have to sign a statement that they will never sue the tobacco company to replenish Medicare and Medicaid and social services. That's what they did in 1998 and 99. How you talk about a buyout, you talk about a leverage buyout, you talk about bailing. Well, do you know what the tobacco companies did when they agreed? Within 2 weeks or maybe 10 days, they raised the price of cigarettes across the board 48 cents a pack globally. So that means they're not losing anything. They just they don't even get a slap on the wrist. They get a stay out of jail free card. They get a free pass.
The money.
So
that
was happening. They kept the money, and they kept getting smokers because they didn't stop them from advertising. No. Even with the 2009 Tobacco Control Act, they made a couple changes under the guise that it's for the children. They didn't put a billboard within 10 blocks of a school, and then they came up with you can't smoke around children at work if you're in a restaurant, and that was fair because a lot of people don't want to breathe somebody else's cancer causing chemicals, and that made sense. But they just took it overboard, and they're doing the exact same thing now with the vaping and the CBD. So that's why you and I have got to develop even though we're in 2 different continents right now, okay, and we're miles and miles apart, we have the wonderful invention of technology be able to get the information that I have here, which is directly affecting you over there in Australia, because you've pretty much got the same thing. You got people who want to quit, should quit, need to quit, and would quit if they could. And here's a product that came along, it was a magical pill, vaping, to help people who want to quit smoking. The success rates are running between 60 and 65% versus 7, 8, or 9% of Chantix, Nicoban, Nicotrol, Nicorette. And who's making all the money? Big pharmaceutical, big tobacco, and big government. So how do we start the Budding Heads program? How do we start a Budding Heads podcast? Well, we talk. And we get people to be excited about the fact that we're just not going to talk to you about, what you need to do, and you need to quit smoking, and you need to quit vaping, and you're blah, blah, blah. The tobacco industry and the big government, and they're hammers, and they think all of us are nails. They just are going to beat us down, beat us down, beat us down, and I'm sick of it. They're poking the wrong fucking bear. Okay,
I agree.
They are poking the wrong bear.
You've got your fight there in the US, and just this week alone, you have someone that we thought that was going to save the face of vaping, being Gottlieb, and then lo and behold, he goes and throws everyone to the wolves. Talking about flavor bans, and then going after the 5 big pod manufacturers, stating that they're the ones causing all the damage. Wrong. They're not. But
here's the thing. They're going after the 5 major pod manufacturers, which is Philip Morris, who has Mark 10. You have RJ Reynolds, which has the Views. You have Imperial Tobacco that has the Blue. You have Logic that has the Logic. Then you have Juul. Juul is not owned by Big Tobacco or Big Pharma. It's a private company. But what's happening, even without Juul, they still got 71% of the market, okay? But nobody cares about the 6 million U.S. teenagers that are smoking cigarettes every day. I don't see him going after the cigarette companies and say, hey, you can't get your teenagers under control smoking cigarettes. We're going to take cigarettes away. No, but they're doing it with vaping? Come on. And when this vaping product has now has 9.5 to 10 million people, the numbers changed, Paul. The numbers are now about 13 million vapors in the U.S., but about 3.5 million of them are still dual users. They still smoke once in a while, but every cigarette they don't smoke when they vape is increasing their longevity. So these are the anomalies. These are the things what we need to talk about. And I'm not going to get on a YouTube show and start ranting and raving and sound, because I don't listen to them myself. I don't care how right you are. If you sound like you're a lunatic, if you sound like you're an obnoxious, snarky, smarmy bastard, I'm not going to watch it. I listen to talk radio once in a while so I can get updated on stuff that I don't have time to look up. And, of course, a lot of it's fake news anyway. It's all one-sided. It's biased, which brings me to the point that I want to talk to you about tonight, kind of like as a teaser to get the Budding Heads program off the ground.
Sure.
I did a documentary called A Billion Lives. You saw it, right?
Yeah, I've seen
it.
Okay.
I don't know how many people in Australia saw it, but we need to get it out there. We need to show, what A Billion Lives is all about. And right now in the United States, I can tell you that only 2% of vapors, that means only 200,000 people out of 10 million vapors saw it, okay? 200,000. We have 10 million, and we can't get them to watch a documentary on how corrupt the government, how corrupt Big Pharma and Big Tobacco is, and how, people are playing right into it. So that's the other thing I want to do. So what I'd like to do with you, and I'm trying to find funding now, is I want to do a documentary with you in Australia to compare what's happening here versus what happened in New Zealand, because they had the same kind of draconian laws that Australia had, but then they reversed it.
They've reversed it, and they've allowed nicotine to be mainstream in the vaping community here in Australia.
As it should be in Australia, Paul.
Here in Australia, I'm also a liquid manufacturer here, and we're not allowed to supply any of our liquids with nicotine in it. If we do, we can be fined, or if you live in 2 other states, one being Queensland or one being Western Australia has a $45,000 fine attached to it, or jail time for something that will save your life.
And how much jail time do you get if you sell cigarettes to kids?
None. You get a slap on the wrist and maybe a fine.
A slap, maybe a fine if they're caught. But they look the other way. It's like the redheaded stepchild. You look the other way.
That's it. You go. No.
And if you if you want a scapegoat, you blame something that's popular. Just like they're blaming Juul, just like the American FDA is blaming. Juul is not an epidemic.
No,
Juul is being used by far from,
no.
Especially when they have cheaper devices. Okay, now because Juul will carry 50 milligrams of nicotine. Okay,
Right. Yep.
Which means it's about the same amount of nicotine in a pack of cigarettes. Okay, but if you take 3 or 4 hits off of that during the course of a day, okay, versus smoking a half a pack or a pack of cigarettes containing 4,760 chemicals, gases, poisons, irritants, vapors, and pesticides, doing the math again, if my kids are going to, try it, I'd rather they vape instead of smoke. First of all, kids, wouldn't it be nice if kids did everything they're told? Thank God kids aren't binge drinking. Kids aren't texting while driving. Kids aren't swallowing Tide Pods. Kids aren't having unsafe sex. Kids aren't bullying. Kids are listening to everything mommy and daddy says, right? Yeah. Uh-huh. And now they pick on vaping under the guise that they give a shit. They don't give a shit because they don't really want you to quit, but they have to make it appear that they care because that's their job, so you can get more grants to get the RFPs, to get to the financial trough. And then what's going to happen, they're going to continue to get work because they're going to fail. Tobacco control has had billions of dollars in the U.S., and I brought some of that money over to Australia with Simon Chapman. And I tried to get people to understand that tobacco companies are evil. They don't care. And now they're taking over the vaping market. Why? Well, because they know it's popular, and they could have done it 20 years ago, Paul. They had the money, they had the wealth, to do it. They had the engineers, they had the scientists. They could have done it. No, they wanted us to do it first from China, and then get all the bad press. Where kids are, eating the nicotine and dying, and poison controls. It's bullshit. It's all a hoax, and that's what the Butting Heads program I wanted to do with you is going to be all about. It's going to be exposing the hoax, and people can either believe it or not. But you know what? No one has ever called me a liar in the 30 years I've been doing this, other than the fact that when I was the Winston Man, people didn't like me because I was promoting a product that they knew was killing. I didn't get it. I was clueless. I get it now. And I admit my part in this. I was complicit, but I did it unwittingly because I was an actor. It was a legal product. I wasn't selling fentanyl. I wasn't selling heroin. I wasn't selling marijuana in the dark alleys. I was selling a product that was being sold to 13, 14, and 15-year-olds. Then things got a little bit hectic, and then they said, well, you can't sell to anybody under 18, and now they're trying to raise it to 20. I don't 21. Give a shit if you make it 50. I don't care. How about that? How about making the legal age to smoke 50? An 18-year-old kid can get into a 7,000-pound vehicle, drive 80 miles an hour, and have a projectile missile, okay? And that teenager at 18 can go to war, go to Iraq, go to Afghanistan. He or she can be responsible for their bills. They can get married. They can raise a child, but they can't choose whether or not to smoke. Or vape. Come on. This is where we need to get our priorities back in order. That's why everybody liked Trump. Trump was going to drain the swamp over here. I don't know what Turnbull was like. I didn't meet the man. I just know that Simon Chapman is not a nice man. I call them Schadenfreuds. Do you know what they are? I think I told you once. Do you know what a Schadenfreude is?
Yep.
A Schadenfreude is someone who delights in the misery and misfortune of others.
Yeah.
That's what a Schadenfreude is. These people who have the capacity, or should have the capacity, with a Hippocratic oath to first do no harm, to look out for the benefits and the welfare of its citizenry, and they're put in the position they can get a paycheck and they block a product that has been proven at 65% of the time to be effective, and they don't embrace it. They want to ban it. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out, okay? So you and I are going to figure it out for him. And you and I think, because you and I both probably spent a lot of time in the naughty corner, when we were younger, right?
Yeah, I used to spend quite a lot of time at the principal's office.
But you know what? I'm a lot older than you, and I don't give a shit what people think about me anymore. Because when they start threatening me with a life sentence, that's not a big deterrent for me anymore at 68, 9 years old in my next birthday. So here's what we need to do. And I think with what's happening here in the United States, it's keeping me busy with the FDA. And now we got to start a new alliance. We don't have any unity. Everybody's pissed off and angry. And we have 60 days to get these companies to bring down the level of smoking. Now, or vaping rather, how are they going to do that? Were they going to duct tape the mouths shut of teenagers? Are they going to have to do analysis? Are they going to have to put chips in the cigarette vaping devices? I don't know.
They're already there. Look, a few of the companies now have what we all know in the industry. They've got Bluetooth accessibility to the devices. So, and they can possibly remote control said device. I'm actually using a device that I can control via my phone and Bluetooth. So why can't they go down that pathway? Why can't they stop? Why can't they bring the technology to the table, right? Bring the technology forward that we all know that they're sitting on. Bring it to the table.
Be innovative. Innovative.
Yeah, and do something right for a change. Stop.
But that doesn't stop the problem of teenagers still smoking combustible cigarettes.
Look.
And we're still giving these free passes.
Yeah, but hang on. Kids are always going to be crafty little bastards, as one of my good friends Gizzard say. Right? He also.
There you go.
They're crafty little bastards. They will find ways and means to get their hands on any product that they want to try.
That's right.
Christ,
So what they're doing this
14, when we were 14, 15, we were drinking beer. Where were we getting that from?
Sure.
We're crafty little bastards. We figured out how to get it.
Right.
We're doing the same thing.
We never had a problem.
No. Not at all.
But it's all under the guise that they're doing something that's not successful. They're not going to be effective. Tobacco control was not effective. Simon Chapman is not effective. He's been working and getting money as a professor emeritus over there for how many years? 30 years?
Yeah,
right? You still have how many people smoking?
Well, we're losing between 50 and 60 people a day from smoking related illness.
And you don't have a real. Do you have a survey on teenage smoking or no?
We do, but it never really gets filled out. And then we have our health minister, which, by the way, Greg Hunt, he is a lawyer. He's not a doctor, and he gets advice from the AMA, which is the Australian Medical Association, and all the other associations in the medical world. And yet he only gets information. He acts on this information, but he also came out publicly and he said, not on my watch, I will not allow nicotine to be added to liquids. And I said, what if we went to the level of putting together proper labs to create our liquids and bring it all to, everyone sits at the table like grown adults and we talk properly.
Right.
They wouldn't do it. We've had a very big inquiry put through the government here. There was around 300 responses from the public, doctors, Dr. Farsalinas in Greece. He wrote letters. We had Clive Bates out here in Australia. Attila Danko wrote reports. Colin Mendelsohn, Clive Bates, and Dr. Colin Mendelsohn wrote a big submission together. Clive Bates then also called out Chapman in some of the statements that he'd made, which was they were false claims. They were false. Nothing more than false.
Yeah.
But
this is what we need to do. Paul, we need to bring every story that you have up about your side, bring up stories about my side, and come to some sort of a common denominator here as to what kind of a program your listeners want to hear. Do they want the truth, or do they want us to sugarcoat it and be all fuzzy and nice and warm, or do they want to hear the truth? Because
I don't think our listeners will want to hear the sugar-coated version. They want the non-bullshit.
Okay, good.
They want the non-bullshit version that names, puts people into a place where we will give them time to respond to us. If they don't respond, if we get a blank face or a blank letter,
Mm-hmm.
then we know that we've hit the nail. That's another nail in their coffin.
Well, this is our first getting together. We've talked quite a bit. I have my podcast over here in the United States. It's called the David G. ModelCitizen.com podcast. I do have a line of e-liquid for beginning vapors, smokers who want to quit. I give them a pretty, middle to high nic content, because smokers, when they quit, don't need to go right from, cutting down to zero. They need to, gradually decrease it. I've given them flavors that they're going to like, whether it's tobacco or whether it's coffee, or maybe even a subtle fruity flavor, because most smokers don't want to jump from quitting smoking to rainbow sherbet, or butterscotch. That's something that there is an acquired taste down the road. And I'm sure that you have certain levels of product available that will meet and be acceptable to any and all takers of vaping. And if it's available, you'll find it, or you'll make it, or that's what you do. That's your job.
And then we're also working together. And first and foremost, I'll say it here. David and I are working on another line of liquids called the David G Down Under series that I'm creating, formulating, and it's going to have his face on the bottle. Hopefully, hopefully some of the money from the sales of this will go to help ATHRA, which is Australian Tobacco.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not to mention the documentary that you and I need to do. It doesn't have to be a long, 2-hour blockbuster. It has to be a documentary of what I did, what you've done, and what we need to do to solve this problem, or at least address it. I don't know if we'll ever solve, and I don't know how you take a politician or a health minister or somebody who's got an ego the size of the sun, who's got an ego that causes them to be narcissistic, that everything is somebody else's fault. Do these people not remember what it was like to be teenagers? Do these people not remember what it's like to watch somebody that they had in their family who died from a disease caused by smoking? Did they forget? Are they that much of an asshole that they can't remember their aunt, uncle, brother, sister, mother, father who died from something caused that what could have been avoided?
It's a shame that once they become a politician, they put on a fancy little suit and wear a tie. They think they're big boys now, and big girls for that matter. It's wrong.
Sure. Why is every politician in the United States, when they go into office, I'm going to give them a pass here. They probably had some good intentions for their community, but why do they always leave 20 or 30 times richer when they get out of politics? Are you making that? Senators only make $160,000 or $170,000 of U.S. dollars here. You can't live in Washington and travel and have 2 offices. All their expenses are paid for. Yes, they make good money, but we have senators that are millionaires. And some of them have $200-300 million, like Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein. Pardon me, I got a little nasty there. And the Democrats here, it's the Democrats here that are the ones who suck. They're the ones that are causing these problems. And these are the ones I stood toe to toe with, 15, 20 years ago, like Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, and Dick Durbin, and Jay Rockefeller from, I think it was West Virginia, I'm not sure. And then all these senators, and Sherrod Brown from Ohio, they all protected. And now they're trying to take away a product that is available for smokers who they let slip through the cracks because they didn't do their job in tobacco control when they had billions of dollars. So I would like the Butting Heads podcast that you and I do to be a couple times a week. We can do it whenever we want. If people want to hear subject matter that we know about, they need to send it to you or me, and we'll talk about it. But I'll tell you what, this is not going to be for the faint of heart. No. This is going to be a bumpy ride. So you better buckle up, buttercups, because I'm telling you, this is not going to be fun. It's going to be exposing, and it's going to be mean, because people need to be held accountable. Bad people making bad laws has to stop when it comes to the number of people who are dying from tobacco in Australia and other parts of the country. Right now, the World Health Organization is trying to ban in 180 countries. So we got a lot of work to do. But you know what? I'm 68. I'll be 69 in April. You're a young man yet. You and I can do some good work if they let us. And we have the media to do it. We don't need our medium. We don't need the media to help us because they're
No,
they're
not at
worthless.
No.
All they are is stenographers. They get paid press releases and they run with it. There's no good journalists out there anymore. If there is, I hope they're listening to this program and they get in touch with you or me and they say, what's the real truth here? Let's talk about it, because I'm not a soundbite. I'm not a snippet of information, and neither are you.
No.
You got enough knowledge over in Australia that you can share with me and I can share with you. And that gets us to a point of passion that nobody's going to take away the passion that I have for what I do. You know, and my family knows what I do. They would rather I be a plumber. They would rather I do something a little bit safer, because I'm dealing with a bunch of corrupt politicians, corrupt tobacco control people, corrupt people that don't give a shit about anything other than the amount of money in their pocket and what's at the trough for them. Because big dogs like to eat first.
Correct.
And when big dogs eat first, okay, all they have looking at chasing them are the sheep, because we're sheep over here in this country. We just, bah, bah, we'll do whatever we're told. Bah, bah. You know what? Wolves, that's what these people are. Wolves, you know what? They don't lose any sleep over the opinions of sheep. But do you know what wolves are afraid of? Bears. So
Correct.
I'm telling people over the United States here to be a bear. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a wuss. Stand up to these people. We pay their salary. Just because they have a suit and tie on and their intentions are now moral indignation because you are no longer available or able to make decisions for yourself because you're stupid, you're a loser, you're a parasite, you're draining our society. And then these people want to quit, because I've never met a smoker yet who wouldn't quit if he or she could. I guarantee you, if you talk to them with respect and you get a smoker to say, hey, would you quit if you could? Chances are they would say yes. But if you go after them and hit them over the head, you got to quit. Screw you.
No,
I'm going to go to my grave smoking if I want. Don't tell me.
You're not going to listen.
If I want to kill myself, I will.
Yeah, I smoked for over 30. I smoked for over 30 years, David, and I ended up.
But when you listen,
I ended up with emphysema. That's why I switched to vaping. I tried all the other crap. It doesn't work.
But if you treated with respect, and right now smokers are not treated with respect, vapors are not treated with respect. They put vapors right in the same boiling pot as smokers, okay? And after all these years of being told you need to quit, they quit, then they want to take away what works 60 to 65% of the time. So I think the Butting Head podcast, I don't care where you run this. I don't care if you put it on. This is not going to conflict with my podcast, the David G. Model. This is just going to aid and benefit it. And I want you to put this anywhere you want. And if we get some scuttlebutt, fine, we'll answer the questions. I'll call me on the carpet. But if you can get your listeners.
Yeah. I'll make sure that there's, hang on. I'll make sure that there's an email address in the notes below. You can contact myself. David and I will go over it. We've got people in the background that can fact check stuff for us. If we find out that it's something that we want to run with, we'll run with it. And we will name names. If you got a name for us that you want to put under the microscope, we'll do it. We don't care. You know, I turned 49 last week. We're 20 years different, but we're here for the same reason. That's it.
Yeah.
We're here to help people.
And if your listeners have somebody that they love and care about in their family or their friends or their circle of friends or their neighborhood that is struggling to quit smoking, and we know that they have now been confused because of all the media bullshit and all the lies and all the misinformation and the underplaying of the benefits of what vaping can do. Well, it's the same thing with CBD, which is another program. I'm not even going to talk about CBD tonight because CBD is important, you know, because when you quit smoking, and I'm just going to tell you this, and this is not an indictment of smokers, and don't get mad at me, smokers, if you're listening. Generally, hear what I said? Generally, smokers, when they quit smoking, are not healthy in other areas of their life. There's a good chance. There's a good chance they're now running, marathons. They're not jogging in the park. They're not playing tennis. They're not swimming, laps because they're smokers. And chances are the other things in their life have gone by the wayside too. Their diet, their fibromyalgia, their stress levels, their anxiety. So CBD is something that can help a lot, but that's another story. And I don't know where you are with CBD in Australia. I think it's illegal, right?
No, you've got to be. You've got it. It is illegal, but you have to if you want it, you have to be on one of the special programs here that the government's put together. But the waiting list, you're actually going to die before you actually get your hands on it. That's the problem.
All right. But you can get cigarettes anywhere you damn well please.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And how much does it cost for a pack of cigarettes over there now?
Okay. Every few months they decide to put it up. We just had a price increase, 12.5%. So a average packet of cigarettes in Australian dollars is anywhere between 30 Australian dollars, and when you're rolling tobacco, upwards of $80 for a pouch of rolling tobacco. They tried all the plain packaging, they tried everything here, but the rates are they're back climbing again. They want to stop a technology that can actually help people, yet they think that, we'll just make more, like tax-wise, we'll just take the taxes and that'll help. But it doesn't help at all.
Do you know what it costs to make a pack of cigarettes? Do you know what it costs to make a pack of cigarettes in the U.S.?
Probably 50 cents.
6.
Oh, well, there you go, 6 cents.
6 cents to make a pack of cigarettes from start to finish. Now, when you add in the advertising, the packaging, the labor, the unions, and everything else, 6 cents to make a pack of cigarettes. Trillions of cigarettes are sold every year. Okay. Yep. Profits are made. Government is getting their federal dollars. States are getting their federal dollars. And now they want to do the exact same thing to the thing that'll stop that money flow at the trough. And that's where we need to discuss and expose and bring in the people who know this. And I have people that I've worked with for years that have this information. I have tobacco files that were given to me by Peter Jennings. He used to be an anchor person over here in the United States. He died of lung cancer in 2005. And I was ABC Person of the Week. They had this thing every week where they bring in somebody who was a hero, a whistleblower, or whatever. And I was on that show, and he told me, just watch your back, David, because what's happening here, this is going to get nasty before it gets done proper. And you're going to have to really fight some really bad, evil people. And not only the tobacco business, but also big pharmaceutical and big government and the anti-tobacco people. So that's going to be our platform. Paul, I think that's what.
Here's the question. Now that Gottlieb has gone after the 5 big pod manufacturers, okay, and Juul being a standalone company, who do you think will be in the bidding war for Juul? Will it be big tobacco or will it be big pharmaceutical? I'm betting on big pharmaceuticals wants to buy
either one, because here's what's going to happen. When they decimate the vaping industry here and globally because of the World Health Organization, if they do, we can still thwart this if we do the right thing. Correct. In the United States. We can thwart it, but people have to listen. And they have to listen not only to me, but to the experts. And who better than to listen to than Attila Danko, Constantino Farsallonis, Clive Bates, Oliver Kershaw, all these people who are now the United Kingdom Royal College of Physicians. We're not talking about Fred's Med School, okay? No. These people are recommending vaping as an alternative. So if we don't get these people, what changes people's views? Embarrassment.
Correct.
I don't think Bill Clinton will ever have sex in the White House again with Monica Lewinsky because he got okay. Now that doesn't give him a free pass. Okay.
No.
So I'm just telling you that we have got to do something, to where we can get people to understand that vaping, if decimated, will come back, but it won't come back as tobacco. It'll come back as a cessation or a medicinal. So yes, big pharmaceutical may be in the running to give this device. They'll bring the nicotine levels down. They'll be able to draw the levels down. It won't be salt nicks. It'll be just regular nicotine, going from 50 to 30 to 12 to 8. And it's the same thing. But what has been successful was the fact that, 5-6 million people, quit smoking because they got the right technique and the right device that gave them the nicotine mouth to lung hit that they needed to be successful in getting off of 4,700 chemicals and gases and poisons. So let's just continue to do what we do. Okay. I'm not vaping tonight because I have a lung infection.
Yeah.
I have a viral lung infection that has nothing to do with vaping. I just have COPD and emphysema, and I need to be on my medicines, and I'm feeling better today. but I do vape, but I vape zero nicotine. And there's nothing wrong with people who quit smoking that start to vape, that down the road they quit vaping. They don't have
Correct.
to vape forever.
No,
You know,
that's correct.
get off of cigarettes, get the vape device that you like, whether it's a Von, I don't care if it's a Blue or a Von Earl or a Views or a Mark 10. Just quit smoking the damn combustibles, because that's what kills people. It's the smoke. As Dave Sweener said in Canada, it's not the nicotine, it's the smoke, stupid. You know,
Correct.
and he said that in A Billion Lives. So I'm going to recommend that people get a hold of, if they can, A Billion Lives, which I starred in it because I was the Winston guy. And Aaron Biebert, the director, called me up one day and said, would you be in my documentary about vaping? And I said, sure. And that was probably his big mistake, because he came to my house and I thought I'd be in it for 5 minutes. And I talked to him for about 7.5 hours. So that's why I'm in the movie for about 30 minutes, because he didn't know what to extrapolate because I had so much information. Now, the information I want to give to you, because A Billion Lives, Paul, was this much of who I am.
Correct.
My podcast and your podcast, Butting Heads, we can get this much of who I am, this much of who you are, and try to find a narrative and a landscape that's going to be pleasing, because there's nothing wrong with having a product like vaping, like e-liquid,
Correct.
reasonably regulated, reasonably taxed, reasonably accessible, reasonably affordable. So if we can do, that's our goal. Because if you want to quit smoking, you certainly should have the right to find the best alternative that even the Royal College of Physicians recommends, along with 13 other health institutions globally. Okay, so we need to name those.
There's quite a number of other associations coming out now and actually saying that vaping, yes, can help. And I know exactly what's in my liquids. I make it myself. I know exactly what's in there. Yes, I do vape with nicotine in mind, but I went from 12 milligrams and I'm down at 3 milligrams now, just to keep my stress levels in order.
Can I say something? You see this right here?
Yeah.
This is my Ventolin. Do you know what's in here? Propylene glycol, glycerin, and water. Guess what's in vaping? E-liquid. Propylene glycol, glycerin. The only thing this has that my vape device doesn't is albuterol, which is what heals my lungs. So when I inhale it, I get all this albuterol into my lungs, but at the same time, I'm getting the generally regarded as safe product, which is propylene glycol, which is found in all of your foodstuffs, all of your cosmetics for the women. It's the same stuff except the albuterol. So when I tell you that people who want to quit smoking, okay, and they start with vaping, they don't have to vape forever. You're not going to be hooked, because you bring your nicotine levels, which is the addictive qualities like caffeine. You bring the addictive qualities down from 24 to 18 to 12 to 6 to 3 to 0 when you're ready. When you don't have to be, when you're ready to quit and you don't think you need it anymore, you start playing games with yourself. You get a vape device. You start using 18 milligrams of nicotine. Then after 2 or 3 weeks, you throw in a 6, and then you'll see if your body can adjust to it. And that'll depend on the stress levels of your life, because it's the same thing. Your life's not going to change other than you're going to feel better. Smokers don't know what good health is until they quit. Okay. Then they start seeing a change in their health and the way they talk and the way they feel, the way they sleep. So I think the Butting Head podcast that you and I do from the United States and Australia, if we get listeners to follow, if they can tell us we're full of shit, that's fine. We'll talk to them, and I'll defend myself to the hilt. But if we can convince them that this is something they want to listen to, we can be educational, we can be informative, we can be entertaining, but we're not going to be wusses, and we're not going to be kicked under the bus and told to go away because we are expendable and we are disposable human beings. So that's the podcast I'm going to do. That's what I want to do in Australia. That's the kind of information we want to put into the documentary, that we do over in Australia here. And you'll support it over there with video feeds for me, and I'll do it for you. Because
I'll support it and get it out to any platform we possibly can.
I know.
And we will speak to the people we need to speak to. And hopefully over the following weeks, we might have a few guests. And I actually want to reach out to Dr. Farsalinas and ask him and we'll have a little chat with him.
You have a chat with him, Colin Mendelson, and Attila Danko, and I have Claude Bates. I talked to Oliver Kershaw today through messaging over in England. There's so many people that want to, but unfortunately, and this is not disparaging my organizations here. We have SAFADA, which is Smoke Free Alternative Trade Association. Yep. We have, CASA, which is a consumer advocacy. It's a consumer group. We have a trade group. We have the lawyer group, which is the VTA. We have Greg Connolly, all very nice people, but they're doing it wrong, in my humble opinion. We're playing too nice. We're giving too many free passes to these people who just keep making bad laws, and we get nowhere. We don't have enough wins on the scoreboard. So we need to change direction, and we got 60 days to do it. So we're going to be working really hard over the next few weeks and getting a group of people together who have had it. We're tired of the bullshit. We're tired of giving money to politicians and to lobbyists who aren't doing a damn thing. So we've got to find a different way to do it. And people are going to disagree with our approach. I don't care. I got to do what I have to do at this stage of my life. And you and I can do it, Paul. So, stay tuned with me, and I'll stay tuned with you. And let's get information out that's educational. And I'll have Kevin Crowley here to back us up and corroborate everything that we need to keep us out of jail. Keep us out of jail, and he'll have bail money.
Oh, he's the one with the bail money. Oh, okay.
He's going to have the bail money, okay? So I'm going to – if we can call it quits for tonight, what I'd like you to do, if you could, if it's okay, because you're the techie, I'm not. Sure. I'm terrible. Technology has passed me by, I send an email and I have to call people to see if they got it, because I'm not sure that I think that the cyber shit is just a fad. I think it's going to go away like television. But
really?
I would like you. You have all my Winston ads somewhere available?
I'll find them. I'll find them all for you, and we'll start adding.
Go to Wikipedia. You go to Wikipedia. You download whatever you want. You have my permission on air. And you start running them, and we start talking as much as we can. We'll try to do this, twice a week, and we'll keep it short, because I know people are busy. People don't want to sit for 2 hours like they go to a movie theater. If we keep it to 30 to 45 minutes, I think that's probably the best way to build an audience. And I would love to have an audience with you over there in Australia, buddy. All right?
That's not a problem at all, Dave. We're going to welcome you back down here in Australia. We'll make sure you'll be coming here when it's summer, so we'll make sure the beer's cold, the barbecue's fired up, and you'll have a bit of fun while you're here. I'll guarantee you that much.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to working with you. And let's just keep this together, and you promote it any way you want. And I'm here with you 100%, shoulder to shoulder, back to back. We're going to get the targets off our back and the bullseyes off our chest. So love your brother, and I'll be.
We've been in the trenches for way too long.
I know. So let's get out of it.
It's time to get out of the trenches and actually show people what we're made of. All right.
And here, when I sign off tonight, I'm signing off. I'm not going to, talk to you about, what we need. What they see is what they're going to get. What they hear is what they're going to get. There's no script.
It's not going to be edited. No edited.
No edited. If we screw up,
straight up, we screw up.
If I cuss too much because I'm angry or I'm venting, I'm sorry. I'll apologize in advance.
No, I don't care. I'm not worried about that.
Well, I worry about, I don't like gratuitous, I'm an old school. I'm a different generation than what we have now, where 4-letter words fly like crazy. Once in a while I slip and I get upset. But for me, I try to be respectful. And I want people in my demographic of 50 to 75, who are quitting. I want them to feel comfortable listening to our show, listening to our program, listening to our advice, and listening to the expertise that I know we have that we can pass on. So good night to you. Good night to your listeners. Good night, Australia. I'm going back to the U.S. to get, out from under the bus in the U.S. here. So you have a good night, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Take care. See you soon.
Board. All right. Cheers.
Bye-bye.